Welcome to Conversations with Ambassador William Eacho. In this segment, Ambassador Eacho would like to speak about personal data protection and sharing information about criminals. Ambassador Eacho, as you know, in Europe there's concern about data protection. How do Americans view the protection of personal information?
Thank you for asking. Americans value their privacy just as much as Europeans do. The United States' approach to protecting privacy is simply different from Europe's, but just as effective. It is not only enshrined in our laws, but in over 2 centuries of constitutional practice. From the American Revolution until today, we strive to limit the government's reach and protect individual rights. At the same time, we expect government law enforcement authorities to protect us from criminals. Our system puts data protection officers in each of our departments and agencies. We require privacy impact assessments for all new government policies, and we enforce our privacy rules strictly. For example, employees have been terminated from the State Department, where I work, just for looking out of curiosity at the passport information of celebrities in their computer systems. That's obviously against the rules. We think it's important to respect and protect the privacy of innocent people, but our governments must still help each other investigate dangerous individuals traveling between Europe and the United States. International cooperation is the key to tracking down criminals in our increasingly mobile world.
Can you give an example of the importance of international cooperation in tracking down criminals?
We have had several recent cases of useful information sharing. A good example is the Afghan national who fled 2 rape charges in California. He traveled ultimately to Salzburg and became a suspect in a rape case there, but he had to be released for lack of evidence. Because data was shared among law enforcement personnel, the United States authorities were able to identify him in 2011. He was arrested, extradited to the US, was convicted there, and is now serving his sentence. In another case, the US and Austria worked together to track down drug smugglers who were traveling from South America via France, Germany, and Austria to Southeast Europe. When the Austrian police arrested them in Carinthia, they found 100 kilos of cocaine in their luggage. Our authorities also worked together to track down an Austrian who was providing child pornography to an American living in Mexico. Both the Austrian and the American were arrested in Vienna in 2011. In each case, US-Austrian cooperation led to arrests. However, new tools are needed to fight increasingly sophisticated international crimes.
Currently, the Agreement to Prevent and Combat Serious Crime, the PCSC, is under discussion in Austria. Can you briefly explain the aim of this agreement?
Yes. The PCSC will allow for the exchange of fingerprint data between the United States and other countries, but only for the investigation of serious crimes. Most EU countries have already signed similar agreements, and most European Union states, including Austria, have similar agreements with each other as part of the Prüm process. The end result is that we will be able to strengthen counterterrorism and law enforcement efforts while protecting individual privacy.
How does the PCSC agreement work?
There are 3 key points I would like to emphasize. First, the PCSC agreement would only allow information to be shared about someone suspected of a serious crime. It only operates when law enforcement authorities make a request in accordance with their own laws. Second, the agreement does not give either side access to a lot of information about ordinary citizens. Here's how it works. One country submits a request about a suspect to see if there is a match in the criminal files of the other country, simply a fingerprint match. The system only transmits a yes or no response. That's all. A human being always intervenes to verify that there was a proper reason for the query and to ensure that any data sharing is in accordance with national laws. Third, no DNA information will be shared for the time being. Although the agreement mentions and encompasses DNA data, only fingerprints will come into play. US privacy laws on DNA are much stricter than those in most European countries, and our authorities are restricted from such information sharing when it comes to DNA.
Where does the United States stand in the negotiating process with Europe?
The United States has signed PCSC agreements with 20 countries in Europe in the last several years, including Germany and the Netherlands. This is part of a broader effort to provide better security and privacy for people living on both sides of the Atlantic, and it also supports the visa waiver program that seeks to facilitate legitimate travel to the United States. There are other agreements being considered between the US and the EU as a whole. Those talks are ongoing, but again, we expect the negotiators will eventually succeed in deepening cooperation, improving law enforcement, and strengthening data protection.
And where are we in the negotiating process with Austria?
The United States and Austria began negotiating the PCSC agreement in 2008. After several rounds of talks, both governments signed it in 2010. The next step is ratification in the Austrian Parliament. The Data Protection Commission in Vienna provided its input during the negotiating process and has done so now with respect to the final text, which incorporates several protections the Austrians requested that other European countries did not ask to put in writing. After ratification comes implementation. We in the US look forward to modernizing and increasing our collaboration with Austria using all the tools available to combat international crime, including an important agreement like the PCSC.
Thank you, Ambassador Eacho.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. I hope you'll join us again for more conversations with Ambassador Eacho.